I'm Mark Ramsey. I'm talking to the one and only Larry Kramer. Now, not everybody knows Larry Kramer, but you've got to know Larry Kramer. This guy wrote what I think is one of the best books I've read in the past year, and he's going to hold it up for you right now.
There you go.
It is. It's called C-scape, Conquer the Forces Changing Business Today. And Larry is the founder and former CEO of CBS Market Watch and also the first president of CBS Digital. And Larry, that means CBS, the whole CBS, like, you know, not CBS Radio, the whole CBS.
It's the network and the, well, it's the whole company.
Now, the title of your book, C-scape, Conquer the Forces Changing Business Today. First of all, what's C-scape? And second, what are the forces?
So c-scape is a short. It's a letter C-scape, and it's named after the four themes of change that have ripped through media. All happen to start with the letter C. The four themes are. The first one's consumer, that the consumer's in much more control than he used to be and has taken a much more aggressive role in the relationship now. You may want to show people a TV show at 10 o'clock Tuesday night, but they're going to watch whenever they want to because they can now. So now there's so many different choices that the consumer's got at his fingertips that he really has a much more dominant part of the relationship now with the programmers. The second C is content is king. Content has always been important, obviously. I've staked my life on it when I started Market Watch, that content wasn't a commodity, that you could do some content better. Now you don't depend on one distribution system or not. Now the power has shifted more to the content creators. You know, if the New York cable system decided to was in a fight with ESPN and decided it was going to drop ESPN rather than pay the money ESPN wanted, people in New York could go somewhere else for ESPN and they would drop that cable system. They didn't have that choice in the past. And the internet, digital platforms do that. They match buyers and sellers and they squeeze middlemen. There's just more and more ways for me to get what I want.
On that topic of distribution, one of the lines in your book that you're alluding to is the old business models are doomed as they're based too heavily on delivery methods. The future belongs to the entrepreneurs who are building new models around creating the content that consumers want and will pay to get. The old distribution models are doomed because they're based too heavily on delivery methods. That's kind of what you're talking about, is circumventing those delivery methods. As a media guy, understanding media enterprise as you do, my world is the radio world. What are the consequences of that for broadcasters in the radio space?
Well, they're huge. I mean, you can't, you know, the fact is if you were a broadcaster in Kansas City, if you were a radio broadcaster in Kansas City, you had X number of places, X number of radio stations, and that's all I could listen to if I was driving my car down the block. Well, guess what? Suddenly there's Sirius, right? And at home, I can listen to any station in the world on my laptop. So the choices for me aren't limited to what that broadcast license bought you before. Now I can be listening to CNBC television in my car if I want to, or Howard Stern.
Okay, but here's the thing that the broadcasters, here's the thing that I hear a lot among broadcasters, which say all of this is true, all of this is possible, all of this is infinite. But in terms of what's actually being done in the real world today, we have this much audience, it continues to rise, the time they spend listening may be reduced based on the number of options they have, but there's still a ton of people listening to us. I mean, how do you counter that argument?
Well, that's true. I'm not saying that the medium dies. I'm just saying it becomes more difficult to be dominant. Mm-hmm. More people are watching television than ever before, but they're just watching it in different places and in different ways. And the network portion of television has dropped dramatically. Mm-hmm. You know, the network ownership of that used to be, if you were, 30 years ago, if you were NBC, you were one of the top 4 stations watched no matter what you did. No matter how badly you programmed the network that year, you didn't come in worse than 3rd, and maybe 4th once Fox came along. But really, that was it. So you only made $8 billion instead of $10 billion that year because all 4 shows you launched that year sucked, right? But now, if you have a bad year at NBC, there's probably 10 or 15 cable networks that could outdraw you, and you're in trouble. And the irony is when Comcast, proving my point, a distributor, bought content because they knew they'd better get some content. What they really cared about were those NBC-owned cable networks, much more than they cared about NBC. The cable networks made much more money than the actual network. The actual network's bloated, expensive, and carries with it a lot of broadcast baggage, that, you know, licenses and things like that. The cable networks, they're more focused, they're better brands. You know, what do the NBC, CBS, ABC brands mean? Almost nothing. They mean sort of quality generally, but that's about it. What do all the cable brands, the cable networks, they all have brands that mean something. ESPN means sports, CNBC means business. You know, USA Today means a certain type of show or movie. You know, Showtime, We Network, the, you know, HBO, they all have niches. And the main networks didn't because they never needed to.
So that's a great argument. That is, of course, the argument. Now, so the consequences of that, the to-do action, as a broadcaster, because of that, my job is to do what?
Great content. You have to put on great content. You know, there's no way around it. You're not going to be a success because you're the only guy in town anymore. You know, you're not going to be, not that you ever were, but by doing great content, you have to do great content. The difficulty you have, far more difficult than anything in the past, is being heard in the first place. Getting out in front of people, getting people to know you have great content. It's why brands matter. And in this world, brands are still better built on old media because old media is more passive. It's not interactive. So, you know, interactive media, you generally go after what you want. In a passive media, things are put in front of you. You promote the new shows and the old shows. You turn a page of a newspaper and you see an ad for something you didn't ask for, or a magazine. But when, you know, the same thing. But in the new media and interactive media, you're getting very targeted products. They're coming at you. You're not just, except for the iPad, which is an important change, you're not really, you know, turning pages. You're not going past things. You know, you're going after something you want. The ads are targeted to you to a certain extent, and, you know, you're off and running. But for the serendipity, for the idea of learning about new content, new brands, new everything, it's much harder to do. So you've got to resort to things like social networks and other things where word of mouth matters and all that stuff goes on. Like it or not, that's the way it is. You know, it's not as easy anymore. Or you buy an ad in the one or two places you know are everybody's gonna be watching, like the Super Bowl, or, you know, those ads have gone up dramatically in price because they're among the fewest places you can do that. You know. So, want me to do the last two C's here?
No, before you do the last two C's, I just want to follow that up. When you say great content, better content, you know, if I'm a radio station playing country music, I'm thinking, you know, I'm playing the best country music there is. Is that what you mean by great content?
Sure. I mean, for the people who want country music. Look, everybody knows you could probably get more people to watch this channel if you had strippers on 24 hours a day and you just sat in the back smoking a cigar. But that's really not what we're talking about here.
That's the interview right after you.
Right. Yeah, you don't want me to strip. That could just about end your career, pal. I mean, you're going after an audience with a certain kind of content. If you're a country music guy, then it's the best country music. It's knowing what country music you want. You know, if I think I'm going to be a rock and roll radio station and I'm playing, you know, nothing but 80s rock, it might not work out for me, you know.
But see, that gets to my point, which is if I'm playing the best country music, then what makes me different from the 1,000 other country music stations I can tap into that you indicated, as well as
no, for you, if all you're doing is playing commodity music, nothing makes you different, except you know, you have to surround it with, you know, criticism, with observations, with interviews with country music artists. You have to do something better. So for me, if you know, I started Market Watch. If all I ran were stock quotes, I would not have won that war because everybody has the same stock quote by definition, right?
So here's what you're getting at, though, and I think this is important. What you're getting at is, even for a music radio station, in the long run, the music becomes the base of what you do, but not the end of what you do. It's the beginning.
The experience. People want an experience, you know. For bookstores, it's meeting authors. For, you know, whatever the experience is, if I'm an aficionado of country music, a station that gives me more that I'm interested in is something I'm going to go to. If I like politics, I might go to, you know, Fox or MSNBC more than I might go to CNBC. Mm-hmm. If, you know, it depends on the nature of what it is, but you need to understand and know your audience. That's the bottom line here. You have to listen. You have to go out. You have to, this is the consumer power. You got to really listen, talk to your consumers, listen to them, and don't think that the way they're going to want it is the way they've gotten it in the past. You know, if you ask people 3 years ago, would you watch video on your phone? 95% would have said, are you out of your mind? You know, and 3 months later, the iPhone debuted, and if you ask those same people 6 months after that, 40% would say yes. I mean, that's just they didn't even know what was available to them yet, and that's still going on. You make it more interesting for them. You give them serendipity. Hey, you like this guy? Let me play somebody for you that's out of, you know, Memphis who you've never heard of, but this guy really has something. Listen to this. Or whatever.
One of the points that relates to what you're saying now in your book is the idea, and I think you quoted the Harvard Business Review thing as they redid their structure, and the observation that the guy from HBR had was, you know, we're not in the publication business, we're in the idea business.
That's right.
And you spent a lot of time in the book talking about the mistakes people make, you know, even going back to the old Ted Levitt, you know, Harvard writings. I mean, if you're a broadcaster in radio today, what business do you think I'm in?
Right. Well, I think you're in the entertainment business, you know, or you're in the news business. You're one or the other. But it's like the newspapers, you know, they think they're in the newspaper business, and that's what killed them. If they thought they were in the news business, they'd be doing something completely different. I mean, it's the railroad example all over again, right? The railroads, if they thought they were in the railroad business. If they thought they were in the transporting people and freight business, they would have been into cars and airplanes a lot sooner than they were, which was never. You see, they're going like, I got to solve that guy's problem if I'm going to be in business. And if that guy's problem is he wants to relax and he wants to listen to country and western music, I got to give it to him, and I got to entertain him, and I got to delight him. Mm-hmm. I've got to make him feel like it's an enjoyable experience that's going on around him, and that's not easy. You know, that's not necessarily easy.
So I want to give you a chance to walk through quickly the last two C's, and then I have one more question for you on advertising.
Okay, last two are curation is the third one, which is really a new art form built around the fact that there's so much information available now. What people desperately need now is someone to help them sift through it. Well, now they have access to anything, but that's the good news and the bad news. They're constantly feeling like they're missing something. They don't know if they're reading the right bloggers. There's 10,000 bloggers in whatever subject they care about. So one of the roles of the media in this new world is to curate that, is to help you find what you want. It's part of what we should be doing as media for our customers. They need it. We need to help them do it. And the final one is convergence, which is what's happening to the media that's really at the heart of all this. We're converging all platforms onto one for the first time. So you can tell a story now, and an iPad's a good example of although there are several, but you can tell a story using words, video, audio, text, interactive graphics, anything in one place. That means that the storytelling process is going to change. It's going to be better. That you'll be able to, there's no reason to just write a book or just give you a video story or just write a newspaper story. That we need to be cognizant of the best way of telling that story and bring all the elements together. So I've more efficiently told a story.
Now, here's the thing, though, Larry. If I'm a radio broadcaster, let's say I work at a news station. Let's say I work at CBS AM in New York, okay?
Yeah.
And I hear this, and I think, wait a minute. He's telling me that I need to have this multivariate, multi-experience digital audio, video platform. The amount of work, the amount of expense, the amount of effort involved in that is mind-boggling. Why don't I just stay with the audio and sell more ads?
Well, you're going to do both. I think for the guy who's driving a car, I don't want an interactive graphic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I want radio. But all I'm saying is there's a new platform. Mm-hmm. And so if my goal isn't to be driving a car right now, but my goal is to learn about something, then that platform is going to be a far better place to get it than anywhere else. Plus, if I don't have to carry, if I'm a 14-year-old kid, I don't have to carry 50 pounds of books anymore. I carry one iPad in my back, and I'm done. And like everything else technology does, the value of technology is if it allows you to do something you want to do better.
So all of these technologies empower solutions to problems that consumers have, and those are out there for the taking for broadcasters and others. And your point, I think, if I could sum it up, is, listen, broadcasters, you have the attention and interest of the audience now. You won't have it forever unless you include these additional layers into your portfolio of offerings. Is that right?
Yes. It doesn't mean you stop doing anything you're doing. And it doesn't mean that good people on TV or good people on radio don't remain that. And then in the context of what you do, you have good TV people doing TV. You have good print people writing. But how you put it together, well, let's use country music. But you have 25 people out there who are writing reviews and who are involved in country music. And you're about to put on a record from some new guy from Memphis. But out there in that room is a guy who knows him really well, who's been following him. You bring that guy up and you have 30 seconds of conversation with him on the air. It's a much more enriched experience, right? And there he is writing a piece for the print version or for the digital version or the cell phone version or whatever. You have to be doing all of those things. You have to accept the fact that your customers are going to be getting this thing on different devices, and it's changing, and it's going to be changing for a while, and you have to respect all of them. That's the only way you're going to get enough revenue to pay for for the big bucks it takes to have you be what you're doing.
You're not radio, you're entertainment. That's from Larry Kramer. Larry is the author of a fabulous book called C-Scape, Conquer the Forces Changing Business Today, being held up right in front of you now. Larry, thank you so much for your time today.
It was great. Thanks. It was really a lot of fun, Mark.